I think we've forgotten what privacy even is, because somewhere along the way we started believing that being private means you're cold or that you got something to hide. If someone doesn't post their relationship online, people immediately start assuming they are hiding something. If someone says, I'd rather keep that to myself, people almost look offended. And I don't know when that became normal, because if you really think about it, privacy used to be a normal thing. Have you ever reached a moment that you were talking to someone, maybe someone at work, maybe someone from university, maybe someone you only met a few times, and somehow 20 minutes later you told them things you never actually planned on telling them? You start off talking about your weekend, then somehow you talk about your relationship, then you go to your family, to your finances, to your future plans, and then you move to that thing that you've been struggling recently. And when the conversation ends, you walk away thinking, why did I tell them all of that? I think every single one of us has experienced that feeling at least once. And then a few weeks later, someone else casually mentions something about your life, something you only remember telling one person. That's how privacy disappears, not through one massive decision, but through hundreds of tiny ones. One unnecessary explanation, one oversharing conversation, one Instagram story, one post. That mentality that you have, I'll just tell this to this one person, until eventually everyone knows your business. And the truth is, I really don't think people overshare intentionally. I don't think people wake up and think, you know what? Today I'm going to tell everyone everything about my life. It happens so gradually that you don't even notice it. And I think social media has helped us with this a lot, because think about it, we're living in a time where almost everything has to be content, has to become content. People announce relationships before they've figured it out if it's going to work or not. People tell the internet they are starting a business before they even make the first sale. People document a holiday, every dinner, every argument, every achievement, every breakdown. We've become so used to documenting our lives that silence almost feels uncomfortable. It's like we've been conditioned to think that if something exciting happens, someone needs to know about it. Or worse, everyone needs to know about it. But here's a question I've been asking myself recently. Who decided that? Who decided that everyone deserves access to your life? Because that's really what we're talking about here, access. And I really think that that's a word that we don't use a lot. Imagine your life in a house, your thoughts, your dreams, your fears, your relationship, your future plans. They are all hiding inside of this house. Now imagine every time someone asks you for personal information, you hand them a key. Not because they earned it, but because they asked. That's exactly what so many of us do when someone asks, how are you? Are you dating anyone? We gave them the key. What are your plans next year? We give them another key. How much do you earn? We give them another key. Take another one. Are things okay with your family? Sure, come on in. And then you start speaking about everything and anything. We keep handing out keys, and then we wonder why people walk around our lives as if they own our place. The older I get, the more I realize that the happiest people I know are also some of the most private people I know. Not because they are hiding, not because they are pretending their life is perfect, but because they realize something that takes people years to understand. Curiosity doesn't automatically earn access. Just because someone asks you a question doesn't mean they deserve the answer. And I know that this might sound a little bit harsh, especially if you are someone who's naturally open. Maybe you're thinking, but I like to be honest, or I'm just an open book. There's nothing wrong with being honest or open. There's nothing wrong with being vulnerable. There's nothing wrong with sharing parts of your life. The question is, who are you sharing them with? Because there's a huge difference between vulnerability and accessibility. Because real vulnerability happens when you've built trust with someone. Accessibility is when anyone who crosses your path gets the same version of you. The same story, the same details, the same access. Whether you've known them for 5 years or 5 minutes. And I think a lot of us confuse the two. You know what else I have noticed is that people often say they want privacy, but what they actually want is fewer opinions. Think about the last time you told someone about your goals before you actually achieved it. Maybe you wanted to lose weight, start a business, apply for a new job, move to a different country, or even end your relationship. Whatever it was. The moment you shared it, it was almost like it stopped belonging just to you. Now people had opinions, questions, expectations. How's that going? Have you done it yet? Are you sure that's a good idea? I wouldn't do it if I were you. And suddenly, something that once felt exciting starts feeling very heavy. And I don't think that's because people are always trying to hurt us. Not everyone needs to be part of every chapter of your life. Some people only need to meet you once the chapter has already been written. I actually think that that's one of the most powerful ways to live, because imagine finishing something before you announce it. Imagine getting the job before you tell everyone you applied. Imagine building that business before you make the post. Literally, just imagine being a person that let your actions introduce you instead of your announcements. And I know what some of you might be thinking. Isn't that a little bit lonely? Shouldn't we share our lives with people? Absolutely. I'm not telling you to become secretive. I'm not telling you to push everyone away. Neither I'm telling you to stop trusting people. Actually, what I'm really saying is that I think trusting people is a beautiful thing, but I also think trust should be intentional. Not just everyone who has access to your life has your best interest at heart. Some people are simply curious. Some people really love having information. Some people love feeling like they are in the know, they know everything. Some people don't even realize they are gossiping. They just literally casually repeating something you told them because it came up in a conversation, and suddenly something you shared in confidence becomes common knowledge. Not because they hated you, not because they wanted to hurt you, but because information travels, people talk. That's human nature. And that's exactly why I wanted to make this video. Not because I wanted you to become mysterious, not because I wanted you to disappear from social media or stop opening your heart, but because I genuinely believe that one of the greatest forms of self-respect is deciding who gets access to you. And if there's one thing I hope you take away from this video, is that your life is not public property simply because someone asks about it. Not everyone deserves a front row to your journey. Some people can clap when they see the finished performance. But I'm getting super excited for this topic. Let's get into the video. Why do we overshare, and why does it feel so good in the moment? Oversharing doesn't make you weak, it doesn't make you immature, and it definitely doesn't make you a bad person. In fact, I really think that most people overshare for real human reasons. Sometimes we are looking for connection, we are looking for reassurance. Sometimes we want someone to say, I understand you, I am here for you. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with wanting to do that, because we are human overall. We were never meant to go through life completely alone. We all want to feel understood, and we all want to feel listened to. The problem isn't wanting connection. The problem is looking for connection in places that were never safe in the first place. When someone overshares with me now, I don't immediately think, whoa, they are talking too much. I usually think, I wonder what they are missing. Maybe nobody listens to them at home. Maybe they don't feel appreciated. Maybe they've been carrying something around for months, even years, and they truly just need someone to ask, are you okay? Sometimes oversharing isn't attention seeking. Sometimes it's loneliness. And I really think that sometimes we don't talk about this enough. But then there's another side to it. Sometimes we share because it feels good, and our brain actually rewards us for it. Have you ever had really exciting news? Maybe you got accepted into university, or maybe someone finally asked you out, and maybe you got your dream job interview, or you start dating. And what's the first thing you want to do? Tell everybody immediately, not tomorrow, not next week, today, right now, because excitement naturally wants to be shared. That's normal. The problem is that I really think that social media has taken something that used to happen between close friends and it turned it into something that we do with hundreds, thousands of people. Now every exciting moment feels incomplete until you actually post it on Instagram, until people actually react, comment, and now before you know it, you're not sharing because it feels meaningful anymore. You are sharing because it feels expected. And it's crazy because I caught myself doing this as well. Something really nice happened happened, and before I've even fully enjoyed the moment, I found myself thinking, this would make a good Instagram post. I'm sure that we all think about that. But then I stopped and think, why is this my first thought? So the first thought is not that I'm grateful, it's not that I'm happy. The first thought was, people should see this. Because I realized I was slowly allowing other people's awareness of my life to become part of the experience itself, as if a memory wasn't complete until someone else had witnessed it as well. And to be very honest with you, I don't want to live like that, and I don't want every beautiful moment in my life to come with the pressure of documenting it. Some moments deserve to stay exactly where they happen, between you, between the people you love, and the memory itself. People who constantly need to update everyone usually feel the most pressure to maintain their image after all. Think about it. If you told everyone you're starting a business, now out of a sudden everyone expects update. If you announce you're in a new relationship, people expect pictures, people expect you to talk about it every single time. It's almost like the announcement creates an invisible contract that you actually signed. And it's crazy because now you feel responsible for providing something, and sometimes that pressure becomes heavier than the goal itself. And I've actually seen people stop talking about their dreams completely after experiencing this, and I don't blame them. Not because they gave up, they realized something. It's so much easier to build quietly than it is to build while everyone's watching. Have you ever noticed that some of the bigger life decisions people make, they don't announce them beforehand, they announce them afterwards? Someone disappears for a year, then suddenly they've graduated, started a company, moved countries, written a book. It's always like that. And then everyone comes and says, wait, where did all of this happen? And the answer is simple: while nobody was watching. And that's beautiful, because progress doesn't need an audience. Progress only needs you to be consistent. And I think another reason people overshare is because we started to confuse familiarity with friendship. Just because you see someone every day doesn't automatically mean they are your friend. You work with them, you go to university with them, or you follow each other's online. You are familiar with each other's, but familiarity and trust are two completely different things. And I think this is where a lot of people get hurt, because proximity creates a false sensation of safety, and then you start thinking, I've known them for 2 years, but have you actually known them, or you have simply been around them for 2 years? Because there's a difference. Trust isn't built through time alone, it's built through consistency, through character, through seeing how someone handles your vulnerability. Because the first time someone tells another person something you shared privately with them, that wasn't an accident, that was information about their character, believe it or not. Not because they're a terrible person, but because they showed you how they treat information that doesn't belong to them. And I really think that that's valuable information for you to have. With this topic, another thing I really want to talk about is this idea that people say, I am just an open book. And honestly, I used to admire that. I used to think being an open book mean being authentic, but now I think authenticity has nothing to do with telling everyone everything. You can be completely authentic without being completely accessible. You can be genuine, you can be kind, you can be honest, you can be funny, you can be real, and still have parts of your life that belong only to you. Those two things don't cancel each other's out. Because imagine you invite someone to your house. Do they automatically get access to every room? Of course not. Maybe they stay in the living room, maybe close family gets to see the kitchen, maybe one handful of people ever see your bedroom, not because you're hiding it, but because different spaces require different levels of trust. So why don't we think about our lives the same way? Why does someone you've spoken to 3 times suddenly get access to your deepest fears, your relationship struggles, your childhood trauma, your future plans, your biggest insecurity? Because maybe they were never supposed to be in that room, and maybe protecting that room doesn't make you secretive. Maybe you finally realize that that room has value. Because here's what I've learned: the more valuable something becomes, the more careful you are in protecting it. People don't leave expensive jewelry away, they actually keep it in a safe place. But the most valuable thing you have, your peace, your dreams, your relationship, sometimes we leave it completely unprotected, and then we're surprised when people mishandle them. Maybe the problem was never that the people were too curious. Maybe the problem is that you've been giving access too easily. But when you realize the trust isn't something people receive automatically, it's something they should earn from you. Now, I think it is very important for me to let you know the downside of you telling everyone your business, because there are some downsides. Something that took me a very long time to understand is that not everyone who knows your life is rooting for your life. And before anyone misunderstands me, I'm not saying the world is full of bad people. I actually don't believe that. I think most people are good, and I believe that because I don't think everyone is waking up in the morning thinking, oh, how can I ruin someone's day today? That's not a reality. But I do think people are human, and humans are curious. Humans compare, humans tend to make assumptions, and they fill in blanks when they don't have all the information. And once I accepted that, I stopped taking things personally, because here's what usually happens. Maybe something you truly trusted them with, they mention it to someone else, not because they are trying to betray you, but because it comes up naturally. Oh yeah, she's thinking about moving. Oh yeah, I've heard they're having some issues, some problems. Oh yeah, I think she's applying for another job. Now that person tells someone else, not in a malicious way, just casually, and now somebody adds their own opinion. Then another person comes and adds details that are not even true, and suddenly the story starts not being yours anymore. It becomes everyone else's version of your life. And I'm sure that I have not been the only one experiencing that, where someone tells you something about yourself and you sitting there thinking, where on earth did you hear about that? It's not true. Or even worse, you start thinking, oh my god, that's not even what happened. And that's the thing about information. Once it leaves your mouth, you no longer get control of what happens to it. It's a bit like squeezing toothpaste on a tube. You squeeze it out in 2 seconds. Good luck trying to put it back in. You can't. And I think that's why I'm so careful now. Not because I don't trust anymore, but because I understand something I didn't understand before. Information has life on its own. The second you release it, it belongs to the world. And the world will do whatever it wants with it. Sometimes it will respect it. Sometimes it will misunderstand it. Sometimes it will completely change it, and that's just the reality. But you know what I also notice is that people don't just share information, they also interpret that information. And this is something I wish more people realize, because let's say you tell someone, I'm thinking about quitting my job. One person hears that, wow, she's brave. The other person hears it and thinks she's making a mistake, and another person can hear the same information and think she's probably hates her co-workers. The same sentence, you literally said the same thing, and you got literally completely different outcomes. Because sometimes people don't hear your words through your life, they hear your words through their perspective. And that's something psychologists talk about all the time, even if we don't realize it, because we don't experience the world objectively, we experience it through our own beliefs, fears, experiences, which means people are not just responding to your life, they are responding to the version of your life they created in their own heads. And honestly, once I understood that, I stopped trying so hard to explain myself, because I realized it doesn't matter how perfectly I explain my decision, someone will misunderstand them. So why will you exhaust yourself trying to control something you're never going to control in the first place? That actually reminds me of something I see all the time online. Have you noticed how someone can post 10-second videos and suddenly 1,000 of people think they know everything about them? This relationship won't last. She's definitely unhappy. They're only together for attention. He's insecure. She's changed. Blah da da da. People build their entire stories from tiny pieces of information. And if strangers on the internet can do that, imagine what happens in real life when people have even more information about you. They don't just know your story, they start writing their own versions of it. And I think one of the biggest mistakes we make is believing that if people knew the full story, they will understand us. But will they? Because everyone is listening through their own perspectives, through their own experiences. Someone who's been cheated on will hear your relationship differently. Someone who's been struggling financially will hear your career decisions differently. Someone who's been unhappy with their own life might even feel threatened by your happiness without wanting to. We all filter information differently, and sometimes less explanation actually creates more peace. You might be asking, but what does it exactly mean to be private? What does it look like? Because I think a lot of people hear the word private and imagine someone who never talks, someone who's distant, someone who's impossible to get to know, someone who replies with one word answers and disappears from the group chat. That's not what I'm talking about at all. I actually think you can be one of the warmest, kindest, funniest people in the room and still be incredibly private, because those two things can exist together. You are not trying to become mysterious, you're simply trying to become more intentional. There's a huge difference on that, and I think that's the biggest lesson I've learned. Privacy isn't about hiding, it's about choosing what belongs to everyone and choosing what belongs to you. Because not everything beautiful needs an audience or everyone to see. You know what changed everything for me? I stopped feeling like I own people explanation. That might sound simple, but I don't think we realize how often we explain ourselves. Someone says, so what did you get up to this weekend? Years ago, I would probably tell them everything. Okay, I went here, I went there, I did this. This is what time I went home. And before I knew it, I've literally just narrated my entire weekend. Now, if someone asks me that question, I'll probably smile and say, it was really nice, actually. I had a very relaxing weekend. What about you? And that's it. Did you feel the difference? I didn't lie. I was not rude. I was not secretive. I just didn't feel the need to turn a simple question into a full documentary about my life. And honestly, most people don't even notice that. Here's something funny about conversations. Most people don't actually want a 20-minute update about your life. They're usually waiting for their turn to talk. Once I realized that, conversations become a lot more easier because I didn't feel the pressure to fill every single silence with information, and I could just be myself. Answer the question, not the story, is such a simple habit, but it changes everything. Because I think a lot of us volunteer information that nobody even asked for, not because we have to, but because silence feels uncomfortable, and we've become so uncomfortable with silence that we rush to fill in it. Sometimes silence is okay. Sometimes the conversation can simply end there. That's it. There's another habit I've been trying to practice more, and I think it's one of the healthiest ones, is that I've stopped announcing things before they become real. This one has literally brought me peace, because if I'm working on something, I work on it. If I'm applying for something, I apply. If I have an idea, I let it grow first. I don't immediately feel the urge to tell everyone, not because I'm scared someone will steal my idea. That's not it. It's because I've realized that some dreams need privacy while they're still growing. Think about a seed. You don't dig it up every morning to check if it's growing. You leave it alone, you water it, you trust the process. Dreams are a little bit like that. Some of them need quiet, some of them need time, some of them don't need 50 opinions before they even had a chance to exist. And I think that's something we've forgotten. We've become so used to sharing the beginning that we rarely experience the joy of surprising people with the ending. Just quiet consistency. And I love that. There's something else I really become intentional about, and this one might be uncomfortable, is that I stopped confusing access to closeness. Just because I enjoy talking to someone doesn't automatically mean they get access to every part of my life. I think we often assume that because someone is kind, they must be trustworthy, and those are not the same thing. Some people can be incredibly kind and still not know how to keep information private. Someone can genuinely love you and still accidentally tell someone something you trusted them them with. Someone can have the best interest and still mishandle something that mattered to you. That's why trust isn't built on personality, it's built on patterns. Has this person consistently respected my boundaries? Do they speak well about other people when they are not around? Because I've noticed this a lot. If someone constantly gossips to you, they will probably gossip about you too. And I just wanted to make it a note that sometimes it's not because they hate you, but that's their communication style. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons life has taught me, is to truly pay attention to how people talk about others, because one day you might become the other. Another thing is that you don't have to explain every decision you make. You don't have to explain why you are single, why you are dating, why you are leaving your job, why you are staying, why you are moving, why you're not moving. You don't need to explain anything, because you don't own everyone the behind the scenes version of your life. Sometimes this is what I decided, full stop, and that's enough. And I know that can feel uncomfortable, especially if you are someone who likes people to understand you. I get it, I really do. But remember what we talked about earlier. People don't hear your decisions through your life, which means no matter how much context you give, someone will still disagree, someone will still misunderstand you, they will still give you an opinion. So instead of exhausting yourself trying to make everyone understand, focus on making sure that you understand, because that should be enough. And maybe my favorite habit of all, I've started keeping some moments completely offline, not because I'm trying to make people wonder what I'm doing. Honestly, I don't care if people wonder. I care if I'm fully present, because I've realized that some of the happiest moments of my life happened when nobody else knew they were happening. There was no camera, there was no caption, there was no perfect photo, there was no pressure. And I think we've forgotten how beautiful that is, to experience something without immediately thinking, I should post this, I should do that, I should do the other. Some memories, they don't need to be proven, they will stay in photographs and in your mind. And some joy don't need to be witnessed. Some chapters become even more meaningful because they only belong to the people who were actually there. And I think that's one of the greatest gifts privacy gives us. It allows us to fully live our lives instead of constantly performing them to social media, to photos, to posts. So if you stayed until now, thank you very much for spending your time with me. If this conversation made you stop and think, I genuinely want to hear your thoughts. What's one thing you decided to keep more private? Or what's one lesson you've learned about protecting your peace? If you enjoyed this video and you like more conversations like this about confidence, emotional intelligence, relationships, and becoming the best version of yourself, I'd love for you to subscribe and become part of this little community. I see you guys in the next one. Bye.